Welcome to the Deep Dive. We get straight to the point, helping you stay informed on the big issues. Today, we're really diving into the intense world of cybersecurity leadership, especially for CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers. The last year, wow, it's really put digital resilience under this unforgiving microscope, hasn't it? With these huge cyber attacks making headlines and, those massive tech outages stopping business dead in its tracks.
It really has been turbulent. And our mission today is to give you a shortcut, really, to understanding this whole changing landscape. We're going to unpack the Tavora 2025 CISO Trends Report and also bring in some insights from other places like Channel Pro Network and Optimal Networks. The goal, for you to walk away with a clearer picture of the new threats, the challenges around getting the most out of resources, and, of course, the constant pressure of compliance.
Yeah, that Tavora report sounds pretty comprehensive. I mean, insights from hundreds of client engagements. That's aiming to really shape strategic planning for next year.
Exactly. And those other sources, they add some really valuable perspectives on how organizations are actually, managing these cybersecurity challenges on the ground right now.
Okay, great. Well, before we really jump in, we do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. That's www.cisomarketplace.com and www.cisomarketplace.services. They're a key part of the support system for cybersecurity folks in companies, and they help make these deep dives possible.
All right, so let's start where the heat is really on. The CISO role itself, the spotlight is definitely brighter, and the consequences for missteps are getting much more severe. We've seen some pretty stark examples recently.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about some of these. It's pretty sobering stuff. What are some of the big ones that really show this increased pressure?
Well, think about that. Telco CEO resigned after a 14-hour outage just from a software update. Okay, maybe not a direct hack, but the fallout was massive. Or the Clorox CISO, who left after a breach, caused huge production problems and, hit the bottom line hard. These aren't just tech glitches anymore.
No, they're major business impacts with real career consequences. And it's getting more public, too, right? I remember reading about the United Health CEO and CISO getting called out publicly by a senator, calling the CISO unsuitable. That's intense.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting, or maybe worrying, is that while the penalties are getting tougher, the actual rules of the game, the regulatory landscape, it's shifting under their feet. Just this June, the Supreme Court overturned this 40-year-old thing called Chevron deference in Loper-Bright case.
Okay, Chevron deference. For those of us not deep in legal theory, what does overturning that actually mean for someone running security?
Right, good question. So imagine you have a fuzzy rule in a game. Chevron meant the agency, like the SEC or FTC, usually got to say how that rule worked in practice. They were the ref, mostly. Now, the Supreme Court basically said, hold on, we, the judges, will be the main interpreters when a law isn't crystal clear. For a CISO, this creates, uncertainty is putting it mildly. The guidelines you've been following from an agency, they could suddenly be challenged or interpreted differently by a court. It adds a whole new layer of legal risk.
Wow. Okay. So higher stakes and the ground rules might change. That really tees up what Trend Micro found in their CISO credibility gap report. They talked to 2,600 IT leaders? And the results about CISO board interactions were pretty eye-opening.
They really were. Get this. 34% of CISOs said their board just dismisses their warnings out of hand. They still see cybersecurity as just an IT cost center, not, a fundamental business risk.
A third of them. That's a huge discount. Is there any reason for the boards to be skeptical, or is it mostly them just not getting the risk?
It's probably a mix sometimes, but the data leans towards the board maybe not fully grasping it. Because 79%, almost 80% of CISOs felt pressure to downplay the severity of cyber risks to their board. And 80% thought only a real damaging breach would actually get the board to act decisively. That's a tough spot.
Yeah, it really is. It puts the CISO in this position of having to somehow translate this complex technical risk into dollars and cents or operational impact that the board understands. And it sounds like they often feel they can't be fully direct.
Exactly. And then you add that 41% worried about just sounding like a broken record, nagging or being too negative. It's a communication challenge, but also a strategic one.
Okay. So with all that pressure, let's look at what smart CISOs are actually doing. How are they trying to build resilience and stay ahead? What are those core proactive measures we're seeing?
Well, the first big trend is really digging into cyber resilience, specifically identity resilience. That's basically how well your organization can recover if your main sign-on system, your SSO, your identity access management or IAM system gets disrupted. How fast can you get back up with minimal pain?
And why the laser focus on identity resilience now?
Because identity is the key to the kingdom, right? If your IAM goes down, business can grind to a halt. So leaders are looking hard at three main things: IAM, backup and restore, making sure you actually have backups you can use. Then there's identity provider, or IDP, failover readiness. We're seeing more companies actually run two IAM systems in parallel, just in case. And finally, identity disruption response, basically, having a plan for when things go wrong, especially if it's an external attack targeting your identity systems.
So it's not just ticking a box saying backup done. It's knowing that backup will actually work when you're under fire. What are the hurdles there, making sure they're truly usable?
Yeah, that's a big one. Sometimes the basic backups from the provider don't include all the configurations you actually need to, run the system. So the smart moves are really push your IDP on what their backups cover, test your own backups regularly to see if they really work, and seriously plan out that failover scenario, maybe even duplicating your whole IAM environment.
Okay, so building internal strength is key. But they're also looking outwards, right? Learning from the big breaches, hitting others. Because the attacks just seem to get bigger and nastier. Advanced phishing, ransomware demanding double payments, supply chain hits, insider threats.
Oh, definitely. They're constantly scanning the horizon. Several recent breaches are really driving conversations. That National Public Data SSN breach from late 2023, the numbers were all over the place. Millions, maybe billions of records exposed. And the data started leaking months later. It basically means for millions of Americans, you have to assume your SSN isn't private anymore. That forces companies to rethink how they treat even supposedly public data.
And the Microsoft Midnight Blizzard attack, that was state-sponsored, right?
Yeah. January 2024, Russian group got access to some internal Microsoft keys, apparently from a test environment, and then password spray attacks jumped tenfold. Shows even the giants are vulnerable, especially through development or test systems.
And that XCUtils backdoor. That one felt particularly sneaky.
Oh, it was. February 2024, a really sophisticated backdoor hidden in this common Linux tool. Luckily, someone spotted it before it got into major production systems, but it was a huge wake-up call. It really highlighted how much critical infrastructure relies on open source code, sometimes maintained by just a few people. Deep supply chain visibility became a huge talking point after that.
Then more recently, June 2024, Snowflake and Ticketmaster got hit. Hackers got into customer accounts through a third-party contractor using old stolen credentials.
Right, classic third-party risk and credential stuffing issue.
Yeah.
It shows you need to manage partner access tightly and that old passwords can still bite you. And then just in July, KnowBe4, a security training company, hired someone who turned out to be a North Korean IT worker using AI to fake their identity and pass checks. Then they had to fire them.
Wow. So adversaries are getting smarter, using AI themselves. That's concerning. So, faced with all this, what are the proactive strategies CISOs are pushing?
It's really about managing the total exposure. Things like implementing a zero trust model. The U.S. federal government has a deadline for that this September, plus the basics done well. Regular patching, using threat intelligence proactively, automating security tasks where possible to reduce errors and speed things up. And critically, building that security-aware culture across the whole organization. Collaboration is key.
And speaking of dependencies and collaboration, that brings us to fourth-party risk. The risk from your vendors, that sounds incredibly tricky to manage just because of the lack of visibility.
It absolutely is. You might not even know who these fourth parties are, but if they have a breach, it could easily cascade down to you. The biggest challenge is exactly that you just don't have direct sight into their security.
So how do you even start to get a handle on that? It feels like looking into a black box.
You have to push your direct vendors harder. Your assessments need to go deeper. Ask about their vendors. Look at contracts. Do they require their own suppliers to meet certain security standards? Mandate minimums. Set clear SLAs that include what happens if their vendor causes a problem. And keep that software bill of materials, your SBI BOM, up to date so you know what components are in the software you use.
That big CrowdStrike outage recently must have been a massive wake-up call on this front, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly showing how interconnected everything is.
Oh, absolutely. That outage rippled everywhere. It laid bare just how tangled these digital supply chains are and really drove home the need for much deeper visibility. CISOs are definitely rethinking risk management because of things like that.
Yeah, which makes sense of this idea of client trust portals or trust centers.
Yeah.
That sounds like a smart way for vendors to just proactively share their security posture, their compliance certs, maybe avoid some of those endless questionnaires.
Exactly. It promotes transparency and efficiency in that complex chain. Anything to streamline that process helps.
Okay, let's pivot now to a challenge that probably every single CISO feels. The pressure to do more with less. Budgets are tight, maybe even shrinking, but the threats are only going up, so they need clever ways to stretch those resources.
Yeah, this is a constant balancing act, and it makes tools rationalization absolutely critical. Building a cohesive cybersecurity platform instead of just, a pile of tools. Organizations collect tech over time, and often stacks get bloated, outdated, or just plain complicated. Sometimes you don't even realize you've got 3 tools doing the same job.
I saw Tavora's experts weighed in heavily on this. Ben Dimmick called it an easy win when budgets get tight. He basically said, get ahead of it. Don't wait for the cuts to be forced on you.
Right. And Mark Brookhammer, another Tavora expert, pointed out it often comes up when clients have multiple tools for just one function. You really need to understand how they're deployed, how they integrate or don't, and what the licensing looks like to find those real savings.
So the questions become, do I actually have redundant tools? Am I using all the features I'm paying for? What's the minimum set of capabilities I absolutely need covered? And, importantly, are the tools I do have actually effective?
Precisely. The goal isn't necessarily perfection, but an optimal cybersecurity platform that hits the critical needs with the lowest burden. Often that means consolidating vendors. It's about achieving, say, 80% of their goals using the resources at hand. It's pragmatic. Get the most bang for your buck.
That 80% goal sounds realistic.
Yeah.
And it highlights that difference between, say, smart redundancy like having host-based and network-based intrusion detection working together versus dumb redundancy, like running 2 antivirus programs that just fight each other and waste money.
Exactly. Oh, and a quick bonus tip here. CISA, the U.S. Cybersecurity Agency, offers free cyber hygiene services. They do continuous scanning of your public-facing stuff and give you reports. It's a great way to add a layer of checking without spending more budget.
That's a great tip. When you are trying to optimize your tools, figure out what you need, maybe explore new solutions to build that better platform, it can feel overwhelming. That's where resources like www.cisomarketplace.com can be really helpful. It's a good place to explore options for tools and services available out there.
Okay, still on the theme of optimizing what you have, the next trend mentioned is purple teaming. This sounds like a more collaborative, maybe more efficient way to test defenses.
It is, exactly. Purple teaming basically brings the attackers, the red team, and the defenders together in the same room, figuratively or literally. Instead of operating in silos, they collaborate. The red team tries something, the blue team sees if they detect it, they share notes, tweak controls, try again. It's much more about continuous improvement and knowledge sharing, often more targeted and efficient than a huge traditional red team exercise.
So it avoids some limitations of standard penetration tests, like maybe they only focus narrowly or try one specific attack method, and maybe don't focus enough on whether the defenders actually saw anything. Right. Purple teaming's main goal is to directly improve detection, threat hunting, and monitoring by giving that immediate feedback loop. The benefits. Teams learn faster, you often improve security without needing more budget, you find gaps quicker, and the whole process can be faster than traditional assessments.
And it helps you test both sides of the coin, right? The detective controls like your SIEM or IDS, and the preventative ones like firewalls and access rules gives you a more rounded picture.
Exactly. It really helps expose blind spots. You simulate more advanced attacks, see where your visibility fails, and check if your incident response would actually kick in effectively. It encourages a more proactive hunting mindset.
Okay, another efficiency booster mentioned is unified assessment. Dealing with multiple compliance audits. That sounds like a nightmare. Audit fatigue must be real.
Oh, it's incredibly real. Unified assessment tackles that head-on by consolidating multiple audits, say, for PCI, SOC2, ISO 27001 into a single process. Ashley Pfeiffer from Tavora put it well. The assessor still gives you separate reports for each framework, A, B, and C. But the burden on your internal team, the time spent gathering evidence and answering questions, is significantly reduced. You get all the compliance outcomes with less internal pain.
That sounds like a lifesaver for internal teams. What are the main benefits CISOs are chasing with this?
Well, efficiency is huge. Synchronized reviews mean less duplication of effort, reduced audit fatigue. You get comprehensive coverage across different standards. And the costs and time savings can be substantial. The sources mention things like an average 65% drop in staff time needed for audits and a 31% cut in internal resource costs. That's money and time you can put back into actual security work.
Okay, but it's not a silver bullet for every situation. When should you maybe not try a unified assessment?
Yeah, good point. It's probably not ideal during major upheavals like a merger or acquisition, or if a framework you rely on is undergoing a massive version change. And the advice is usually don't try to unify everything all at once, phase it in gradually.
Makes sense. Okay, last trend in this do more with less category. Managed security platforms, partnering, and outsourcing. Sounds like CISOs are increasingly looking outside for help.
They really are. Turning to outsourced managed security programs, or MSSPs, is definitely on the rise, and there are some strong drivers. First, the talent shortage is just brutal. That ISC2 report from 2023, a global gap of over 3 million cybersecurity professionals. You just can't hire everyone you need.
3 million. Wow. That's a staggering number. So it's partly necessity. What about the financial angle?
Finances are a big part of it, too. Outsourcing shifts spending from big upfront capital expenses, CapEx, to more predictable operational expenses, OpEx, that helps with cash flow and budgeting. Plus, MSSPs often have economies of scale. They have the specialized tools and expertise already, which can be cheaper than building it all in-house.
And this isn't just about farming out the whole security operation, right? It could be specialized help too, like implementing a tricky new tool or getting help with GRC tasks like policy writing.
Exactly. It can be very targeted, help with specific technologies, or augmenting your GRC team with technical writers or framework experts. And another really interesting model is the fractional CISO, or VCISO. Basically, hiring part-time strategic leadership. They can help with strategy, governance, implementing programs, training, filling those high-level gaps without the cost of a full-time executive. And you can scale it back when needed. It's flexible expertise.
Yeah, that flexibility sounds key. Finding the right talent, the specific skills you need, especially when budgets are tight and the competition for experts is fierce. It's tough. So if your organization is thinking about outsourcing, managed services, maybe even a VDISO to level up your defenses, checking out www.cisomarketplace.services could be a really good starting point. It helps connect you with qualified providers. Okay, let's move to our next big category, privacy and data governance. This has just exploded as a concern, hasn't it? Driven by, well, people being much more aware and maybe skeptical about how their data is used.
Absolutely. The public awareness is way up. Look at the stats. Pew Research found 62% of Americans think it's basically impossible to avoid companies collecting their data, and 81% feel the risks outweigh the benefits. There's a lot of mistrust. And Tableau found 63% of internet users just don't think companies are being straight with them about data use.
And that mistrust hits the bottom line. A Cisco found nearly half, 48% of users actually stopped buying from a company because of privacy worries. And 37% cut ties completely over data issues. That's up from just a couple of years ago. It's clearly impacting loyalty.
Definitely, which is why, as Daly's reported, over 120 countries now have data protection laws. It's a global movement. And that leads perfectly into the first trend here. Privacy is on display. You just can't hide your data practices anymore.
So privacy at its core is about giving people control over their own information. What are the big regulations setting the pace here?
Well, globally, GDPR in the EU is still kind of the gold standard. Strict consent rules, strong data subject rights, that 72-hour breach notification window, huge potential fines. Remember, Meta got hit with a $1.3 billion fine in 2023? In the U.S., California's CCPAC PRA is very influential, giving consumers rights to know, delete, opt out. And do pas for healthcare data remains critical federally.
But the U.S. is also this patchwork of state laws, which must be a headache for CISOs trying to comply everywhere.
Oh, it's a major challenge. California just had a court ruling in February making new rules immediately enforceable, removing a grace period. Plus, you've got new laws kicking in or coming soon in Montana, Texas, Oregon, Florida, each slightly different. So having a really solid, comprehensive privacy program that handles common requests like deleting data or accessing it, it's not just good practice anymore. It's table stakes for compliance.
Yeah, that compliance burden sounds immense, which probably explains the focus on data awareness. You can't govern what you don't know you have.
Exactly. Data awareness is just that. Truly understanding your organization's data. What is it? Where is it stored? Who can access it? Where does it flow? How sensitive is it?
And the usual suspects make this hard, right? Data trapped in silos, shadow IT popping up everywhere, old legacy systems tracking where data actually came from and where it goes, all making risk assessment a nightmare.
Precisely. So companies are asking themselves harder questions. Where is our most sensitive data hiding? Is it actually secure everywhere it lives? Do we have tons of duplicate or old data creating unnecessary risk? Are we keeping data longer than we should be? Things like data mapping exercises are becoming essential tools just to get that basic visibility, find the weak spots, and make compliance possible.
Which brings us neatly to data governance itself, the actual rules, processes, and tech for handling data properly throughout its life.
Yep. Who gets to touch what data and how should they use it responsibly? That's data governance. And the trend is clear. It's moving beyond just IT or compliance checklists to become a core part of corporate strategy. Gartner found 65% of data leaders are prioritizing it. We're also seeing more focus on showing the ROI of good governance and a move towards maybe more flexible, decentralized models rather than purely top-down control.
So it's not just about ticking boxes, but about demonstrating value and being maybe a bit more agile.
Exactly. And technical drivers are pushing this too, especially around data loss prevention or DLP. The latest PCI DSS standard version 4.0 specifically requires organizations to define and track their data flows and prove they have controls. Plus, with more remote work and cloud adoption, data leakage risks are up, increasing the demand for better visibility and control.
Sounds like a big transformation project for many.
It often is. There's this idea of 5 phases of data governance transformation, starting with strategy, then discovery, building the program, implementing changes, and finally continuous monitoring. And modern tools are helping here. Things like data security posture management, DSPM, next-gen DLP, cloud access security brokers, CASBs, and CaaS security posture management, SSPM, all designed to give better visibility and control over data wherever it is.
Okay, final category, and it feels like the one evolving the fastest. The age of AI. This has just exploded onto the CISO's radar recently, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. AI has huge potential for helping cybersecurity, spotting threats faster, automating responses. But AI systems themselves are now new targets and introduce new risks. The market forecasts tell the story. The AI-based cybersecurity market is expected to rocket from maybe $15 billion in 2021 to around $135 billion by 2030. That's incredible growth.
So CISOs basically need a dedicated AI security program, something separate from their regular security plan, to tackle these unique AI challenges.
That's the emerging best practice, yes. As Jeremiah Solbert from Tavora put it, AI security felt like the Wild West for a bit while the tech raced ahead. But now, savvy CISOs realize they need to catch up fast. They need a specific plan.
So what goes into an AI security program? What are the key pieces?
Well, first is an AI-specific risk assessment. You need to know where and how AI is being used in your organization. What are the actual use cases? Then you need awareness of the new attack surfaces AI creates, things like the APIs connecting AI models, vulnerabilities in the models themselves, how the outputs are handled. And finally, AI-focused threat modeling. Thinking through how attackers might misuse AI, poison the training data, or attack the model's integrity, it requires a different mindset.
And this isn't theoretical, right? We need to address new AI threats that are already happening, like that Samsung incident where an engineer accidentally leaked source code to ChatGPT.
Exactly. That was a real wake-up call about data leakage risks with generative AI. And the threat landscape is evolving incredibly fast. Darktrace reported a 135% jump in novel social engineering attacks early last year, purely because AI makes it so easy to create super convincing fake emails, deepfake voices, targeted scams at scale. Attackers are also using AI to find vulnerabilities faster and craft really personalized attacks.
That's concerning. So how are our old school security tools holding up against these AI-driven attacks? Are they keeping pace? Or are they, as the report suggests, kind of lagging defenses?
Unfortunately, often lagging. Traditional defenses like signature-based antivirus or simple rule-based IDS, they struggle with the dynamic, fast-changing nature of AI-powered attacks. That's why initiatives like the OWASP POP 10 for large language models are so important. They highlight brand new risks like prompt injection, where you trick the AI, or training data poisoning, or even model theft. It's a whole new ballgame.
And inevitably, where there's new risk, there's new regulation trying to catch up. So AI compliance is the final piece here.
Definitely. In the U.S., Executive Order 14110 on safe, secure, and trustworthy AI came out last October, putting NIST right at the center of developing standards. NIST was tasked with creating guidance for generative AI, secure AI development practices, and even setting up ways to evaluate AI capabilities and test them through red teaming. They had a really tight deadline for a lot of that, which just passed at the end of July 2024.
And NIST did deliver, right? They released that AI risk management framework profile for generative AI just recently in July.
Yes, they did. Meanwhile, you've got the EU AI Act taking a risk-based approach, focusing on transparency and human oversight. And globally, there's now ISO 42001, the world's first standard specifically for an AI management system, launched late last year. It's designed to work alongside existing standards like ISO 27001 for security and 27701 for privacy. So the push for governance is definitely global, but CEOs are the ones figuring out how to actually implement it day to day.
Wow. Okay, so as we wrap this up, it's crystal clear that 2025 is going to be incredibly dynamic and frankly challenging for cybersecurity leaders. CISOs are juggling so much, building proactive resilience, stretching resources, navigating complex privacy and data rules, and now grappling with this whole new world of AI security.
Yeah, the big takeaway for me is the need for constant adaptation and leveraging technology responsibly. The landscape is shifting so fast with new regulations, new threats, new capabilities like AI. You can't just stand still. It's about building genuine, robust digital resilience, not just checking compliance boxes.
So a final thought for you, our listener. As this digital world keeps changing at lightning speed with regulations evolving and AI reshaping everything, what specific part of your organization's cybersecurity posture feels like the most urgent thing to tackle right now? Not just for compliance, but for real, lasting digital resilience. We really hope this deep dive gave you some valuable insights to think about. And remember, if you're looking for resources, tools, or maybe some expert help navigating these tricky cybersecurity waters, check out www.sealmarketplace.com and www.CISOmarketplace.services. They are really committed to helping organizations build stronger, more resilient security.